Happy June and happy Pride. Celebrating pride in all of us. All this month, Richard Skipper celebrates those that are making a difference in the LGBTQ community. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Tuesday night, everyone, and welcome to Richard Skipper Celebrates. Happy June, happy Pride, happy Orange. Orange in the gay pride flag is all about celebrating harmony within each of us and healing. And that's what we are all dealing with right now as we rejoin the human race. And I'm so excited that tonight, my dear friend, Matt Skallerud from Pink Banana, it used to be, it's now Pink Media, and we're going to find out how that transition happened, has joined us this evening. And I am in orange, obviously, for the pride flag. And you're in pink, flamingos for pink.
with a beautiful orange behind us. So we're hopefully we're well themed.
I hope so this evening. I want to ask you, first of all, we are celebrating Pride all this month. And I want to know what specifically Pride means to you.
Yeah. No, just especially here we are in 2021 with all the things that we have that we've achieved, and also realizing some of the things that are still on the horizon. Pride, to me, just a lot of it is just a reminder that as when we work together and we put a lot of positive energy forward, there's a lot of great things that we're able to accomplish.
Now, I want to get a little history on you. Where are you from originally?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, and brothers and sisters.
One of each, and we all grew up in the harbor there in LA, and it just it was always funny because as I started traveling around as I got older, people were always amazed. They thought no one was actually from LA. They thought everybody was a transient. So I was like, no, there's a bunch of us that are actually from there.
You know, there are a few of those out there, but I want to go back to the 5-year-old Matt. Were you Matt or were you Matthew?
Matthew.
And okay, Matthew, the 5-year-old self to me is that pure self before peer pressure is put on when you start school and teachers start defining who you should or should not be. Can you tell us a little bit about what your life was like as a 5-year-old kid?
Yeah. Well, when I talked to my parents over the last few years, I realized that I've been pretty much the same all this time, never really always fully appreciated it. My dad was telling me that when we'd go to some, I forgot what kind of event, but we'd be there and they'd be they were quieter than I was. Mm-hmm. And they'd be sitting there at their table, and they never had to worry because I would just make the rounds in the room, meet everyone, introduce myself, and bring them over to the table to meet my parents. So knowing that that's who I was then, that's part of me that's sort of just stayed the same after all these years.
And what were your aspirations as a kid and all through school?
Yeah, I skipped a grade when I was in kindergarten. So my whole growing up, I was always younger than everybody else in my class. Mm-hmm. So, but I was also that kid that was kind of skinny, kind of dorky, but always I was never the smartest kid in the class. I was always like number 2. There's always somebody that was but that's what pushed me, was to try to be number 1. And so that's, I was just kind of like this dorky, geeky little kid that had good grades and stayed very focused on schoolwork.
And is that drive still very much a part of who you are today?
Oh yeah. Because when I say that, I should actually also point out that the other side of me was that, I'd come home after school and I was not one that to stay indoors. I'd grab my bike, go out with my friends, and we'd go roaming around. And back in the day when kids could roam around without supervision, and we'd go roaming around for miles on our bike and come back, and so that's always been a part of me as well. Just sort of those two forces, you might say, kind of always guiding me through life.
And did you always have this desire or this dream to be a part of the world of PR, media? And if so, or did
Yeah.
that, you're shaking your head.
No, because I got my degree in aerospace engineering. So that's why my husband loves to joke around that I am a rocket scientist. And I got my degree. I had a great job right out of college, and I was working in an R&D lab and working on lasers for manufacturing. And basically, after a few years, I got really bored. But at the same time, since I was a low man on the totem pole, I used to actually work on the machines that we were developing. And then salespeople would come in and bring their clients. And over time, I started finding out that I really enjoyed working with those folks much more than this R&D world. So I jumped into the world of sales, of what I was working on as an engineer, and had to leave that company. They didn't believe engineers could be salespeople, but another company did. And I grew with that. And that's that kind of combination of feeling very comfortable with technology, but being able to explain it to others what kind of allowed me to, when the internet came along, kind of forge a new path. So I just decided when the internet came out, it was 94, 95. And I started playing around and came up with some ideas and thought, well, I could either do something in the world of lasers and manufacturing, or I can go into something completely, no one knows me, and it would allow me to kind of grow and find out what I'm really made of. So I jumped right into the LGBT world in 95.
Well, what was the seed that grew Pink Banana?
That came a little later, and I could explain even how the name came along. But in 95, we started gaywire.com, and it grew up into a really, we became one of the largest LGBT sites worldwide, and we sold it. And along the way, during that time when we had Gaywired, when we go to events, especially Pride festivals, what do you do when you're an online company, especially back then? So we actually printed a magazine that was about the LGBT internet, and it was called Gay Web Monkey. So we had this cute little magazine, cute little icon, and people remembered it, but it was a full 8.5 by 11, full color. And it was a really good quality and great stories. So people really remembered that. So we had Gay Web Monkey. So when I sold everything, I wanted them to know it was me. So I went back to the guy that kind of helped me create the logo and everything for Gay Web Monkey. And we were like, monkeys, bananas. And so he kind of put together a logo that actually had some similar design concepts to what Gay Web Monkey had. So we created Pink Banana Media. And we ran with that for many years, strictly as that. And overall, it worked.
Now, when you sold Gaywired, were there a lot of offers coming your way, or did you start reaching out to see others? Were you ready to move on beyond that?
Yeah, none of that. None of the above on that either. I was starting to feel a little bit like, not so much moved on, but I was getting a little bored. Maybe one could say that I get bored easily. And with these things, I like growing. I'm one of those that I can actually grow things into a business, stay with it, put a team together and all that. But everything in the world of email and banner ads, which were the main revenue sources at the time, but all that went from zero into, by 2005, it started to become a commodity. We used to just get advertising orders over the fax machine already pre-filled out. They knew what we would charge, and they just they treated it as a commodity and knew that we would take that and run with it. And at that point, it's just not as much fun. And so I know that I remember at the time thinking, well, it's kind of, everything's kind of growing up. I thought it was actually going to kind of max out. I thought banner ads and that whole revenue stream and sources for that was going to fade away, but it didn't. It continued to evolve. And so, but at that time, Here Media really wanted to be in the business. So they aggressively came after us. And so we weren't really looking for anybody to sell to. We didn't look for counter offers or anything. We just simply worked with them and sold it. And that was where I stuck around for about a year, and then I moved on.
And when you started Pink Media, how many employees did you have working with you at that time?
No, because when we sold Gaywire to Here Media, we had 10 people. So we had 10 people on. We had a whole office on Wilshire Boulevard in the Johnny Cochran building, and so that team went over to Here Media. So that when I left, it was just me until my business partner, who was also at Here Media, Fabrice, when he stuck around till 2011. So then when he was done with that, he came on board. And so then there was, in 2007 or 2011, I'm sorry, there was two of us.
Now, were all of your employees at that time from the LGBTQ community?
They were, yeah. Everybody was.
I'll tell you, when I came to New York, I worked for a company called Tiger Temps, and
Yeah.
it was gay owned and operated. And everybody that worked there was either gay, lesbian at the time. Now we've got all the other letters that we add on.
Yep.
Gay and lesbian, and we were out, and we were proud. And it was a good time for me because it was at that transition in my life
Yeah.
where I was starting to realize who I was and what I was all about. And it just made life so much more comfortable for me. I want to ask you, since the beginning of Gay Wired up to this moment now, what are some of the biggest changes that you have found in terms of a business that is gay owned and operated, and how you navigate yourself throughout the waters of the world? I don't think, and you can correct me on this, if you actually have a lot of competition with what you're doing.
Yeah, with what I'm doing right now, there's a lot less. The way I see it, it's been now 26 years. So from my perspective, we started everything from zero. There was no roadmaps for how to create any online site. There was no banner ads. There was no Google. There was no Yahoo. There was none of that. So we were creating something and kind of making up it as we went along. And ultimately we created this whole site that became a portal that people would stick around on for maybe, let's just say, up to an hour. And it had message boards and content and ways for people to sign up. And so things were very different then, because there was no social media for them to be distracted by and so forth. And so when you fast forward to today, I would just say that I am personally, and even our team, is as excited now as we were back then, as far as the opportunity and the limitless possibilities that are out there. Because when the internet first came along, it was really clear there was so much that was ready to be built. I mean, I remember I had a joke for like a year that we'll know the internet's come along when Walmart finally gets online, because even Walmart wasn't there. And yet, looking back, we're thinking, that couldn't have happened. They must have always been online, but they were not. And so it takes quite a while. And so all the things, all the online banking, all the boring stuff, all kind of came to fruition over, let's just say, a period of 10 years or so. And where we're at today, where everything, it's not just social media, but it's the types of social media that really allow you to collaborate and engage with others and learn, meet new people and learn new thoughts and so forth. And so that whole level of not just being connected on the internet, but actually collaborating and engaging with, that's opening up a whole new frontier that I think is going to have crazy possibilities over the next 5 or 10 years. And
you just answered my next question, but I was going to ask, what excites you the most about what you do?
Yeah, mostly that. It's just knowing that we're doing something in that space. We don't know that we're absolutely coming up with the right answer, but we're trying, and we're navigating a space. And when you were talking about no competition, it's just, there is some, but it's because we're doing all this stuff. But I would just say that others are still, most of our peers are still pursuing more of a traditional model of marketing and advertising.
And of course, I follow you on all the platforms, and there are so many different handles that you have, or names. How many do you have on Twitter, by the way?
Probably close to 200 now. And it seems more difficult than to manage than it is. It's just each one of them stays true to their nature, their niche, their what have you. Whether it's I Love Gay NYC, I Love Gay Theater, each one of them is designed to not just follow anybody randomly, but to really follow specifically those people that are in theater or in New York City, because there's the way the algorithm on Twitter works. It opens you up to being able to meet a lot of other like-minded people, as long as you keep yourself in that niche. But if you open it up, then you'll be seeing random stuff from anybody, and they'll see random stuff from you. So there's kind of a formula. There's a thought process behind it, and it's allowed us to really be able to go deep into a wide variety of different niche markets or regions of the world without, in a scalable way that doesn't require a large team.
Now, is there a method to the way that you are promoting your business? You're very, very visible. You're out there. Is there a game plan that is in place for keeping the business very prevalent and in the eyes of the consumer?
Yeah, for consumers, it's Twitter is 99% of all of our efforts, and we dedicate a certain amount of time every day to certain profiles. But even when we're focused on a few profiles, if we see content on one that's, let's say we're on one about theater, but we see something about sports, we will share it onto the sports So all the profiles and handles are really kind of staying active at least a few times a week. And so that's the area that we're really seeing the most engagement with and growth. And so we're really in many ways kind of creating this hybrid media company where it's not a traditional media company with traditional became an online site versus print and so forth. So it's not a traditional online site, but it's kind of a hybrid where the majority of all the work is being done out on the social media side, but we're still bringing people back to articles and different things that are still found on websites as well. So this whole strategy seems to be working quite well.
And what surprises you the most about where you are right now versus where you were when you first started? Even going back to Gay Wired.
Yeah, no, of course, when we were doing Gay Wired, we could have never envisioned what we're doing now, because now it's like it's a whole different algorithm. Back in the day, you were excited when you reached a level where you had like 1 million visitors a month, and you're like, wow, we've really achieved something here. But you don't know who any of those people are, and it's completely anonymous, unless, of course, they've registered and they're more engaged with you. But that was very limited. But in today's world, you're dealing with a lot less people, but the quality of the relationship is far higher. Like there are people that or organizations that I see or engage with almost every day on primarily Twitter, but also LinkedIn and Facebook and so forth. But I engage with them in such a way that makes it much, much more personable and much more human. And I think that's a big difference over the last 25 years.
Now, I will say that when I was doing my live show, Richard Skipper Celebrates, you were handling our PR and did a phenomenal job. So I will always be grateful to you for that.
Well, thank you.
Has there ever been a situation with you where you've turned down someone because you didn't feel that it was the right fit for your business?
Yeah, it comes in waves. Especially the waves would be not what you would think, but the waves are like when you're starting new areas or new, like especially with what we're dealing with now. I've been much more open to taking small clients on projects that I wasn't sure about, but because I wasn't sure what the limits were of what we were able to do. But it's been maturing over the last few years. So we're much more comfortable to be able to say, kind of put a little pause out there. Usually people come to us and they just say, oh, I just want to reach gay people. And we always say, well, let's focus on out of the LGBTQ plus, who exactly are you trying to reach? And the fact that we can actually reach more specifically who their target market is, a lot of that is new. Like they're not really thinking along those lines. So once we start refining things and all that, the clients we take are those that really understand that at a basic level, and we don't have to spend a lot of time trying to sell them or educate them on that stuff, because it's a lot of work, and it may not even you may do a lot of work to try to get them to understand something that in our world, we're hoping that they've already kind of done some of the work and figured some of this stuff out themselves. And so then the folks that we do kind of turn down once in a while are those that don't quite fit in, don't understand, or may not really give us the value. Like if we're going to do all this work, and then sometimes they'll say, well, that's great, you got all this visibility and click-throughs, but and the but is for us doesn't quite match with how we work. So we try to avoid that.
Now, with everything that you do, I want to ask, what are some of the biggest misperceptions that people have about the work that you do and what a publicist does?
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't say, it'd be hard pressed to say misperceptions, but because the world that we're all in is very much in a transitionary world, especially when it comes to PR and so forth. Once upon a time, they would speak in a way that would say, oh, we got a story and these such and such publications, and they have 5 million total print run or whatever, and then they have a readership factor of 2.5. So basically, they would just throw out numbers and say your story reached a potential of 25 million people. Well, that kind of stuff that doesn't work nowadays. Nowadays, of course, in the online world, you're held to task. There are people, an ad agency is measuring exactly how many people saw an ad, and they're discounting everybody that they have all these different brand safety things in there. So they're discounting a lot of stuff that's even being driven. So there's a big disparity between that old world of PR that just focused on this kind of nebulous general reach, and the way things are now, which are very, very, very specific. And so for us, it makes a lot more sense when we're working with folks that do understand the specificity, if that's the right word. But knowing that,
it's easy for you to say.
I know. No, yeah, we're never gonna reach 25 million eyeballs, and we're never gonna promise that even remotely. But we are gonna reach a certain number of qualified, or much more like warm leads as opposed to cold stuff. So it's a whole education
that's
process.
gotten harder as time has gone on, because there are so many more people on social media than there was when you first started in social media, and it's constantly changing. The algorithms, and I mean, one thing that worked yesterday on Facebook, for example, is not working today.
Yeah.
Is that frustrating for you, with the work that you're doing?
No, what I would say, if it makes any sense, we're seeing it from a perspective that things are continuing to finally evolve, not just evolve, but mature. And that all of this, because they're all learning as they went along. For example, once upon a time, just 3 years ago or 4 years ago, Twitter's feed was purely linear, which means that everything was just simply based upon a timeline. If you look at your timeline as what was posted 1 minute ago, 3 minutes ago, 5 minutes, no, that's useless, completely useless, really. But and Instagram used to work the same way. But it was pretty recently that all of a sudden they developed an algorithm that was able to pull the more popular stuff up, and then also be able to allow you to see not only things that you're from folks you're following, but things that are from friends of friends that you don't know, but everybody seems to be liking their stuff. So that starts to show up. So it's probably becoming some of the smartest artificial intelligence to be able to pull these from these millions and millions of posts every minute and be able to deliver to you things that are relevant. And so for us, that is always getting better and better. So we're looking at it from that perspective. And that's why we put so much emphasis on Twitter, because Facebook has kind of matured, and it frustrates a lot of people because it's extremely powerful for that personal profile and your 5,000 friends max, 5,000 max. But when you're posting from a business,
are you finding that? I mean, with the fact that I remember, for example, when I reached the 5,000 mark on Facebook.
Yeah.
At that time, I thought, wow, 5,000 people are actually interested in being my friend on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then it became more of a curse than a blessing to have that many people, because I am finding it amazes me how many times I will post something. Perhaps I'm posting wrong, I don't know. And so many people will say, well, I had no idea that you do this. Or that you posted this or something. And I'm finding this from a lot of the people that I associate with and I do business. They will post something and they're saying that, we're looking for those likes, those shares, those comments, and you can post something and nobody responds to it.
Yeah.
And then you can post something like a picture of a cat and 5,000 people respond to it.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. It's at the end of the day, it all boils down to human psychology, but and the understanding of people and understanding, I would just say that 5,000 that you have in Facebook is kind of like a silo. It's friends, family, and professional colleagues all kind of mixed in. So you're trying to post things that are going to appeal rather broadly to all those people as best you can, but that's also the big limitation. So once you go beyond Facebook's personal profile into your business page, which you have and others, we all have, that's a lot less noticed out there. Facebook does not make your posts do not get seen unless you pay them. So that's why we do minimal things. Like Facebook's important, but only up to a point. And then and Instagram's, everybody loves Instagram, but it's not that high up on our list as well, because it's also limited with the 7,500 that you can follow. Inherently kind of creates a cap for, it all of a sudden you've just got to be much, much more interesting than in that sense, in order to be able to turn yourself more into a celebrity. Because if you want to have 100,000 people following you, usually it's a 1-to-1 ratio. On Facebook, they follow you back, but on Instagram, to be popular, you've got to overcome that. And of course, some have, but they're all racing with each other to be able to see who can, who get the most followers, who get the most likes. And it's not necessarily the best for a business to promote themselves. And so that's where we're actually much stronger on the Twitter and the LinkedIn, and that kind of those two are our strongest when it comes to everything: posts, engagement, attention being paid to what we're saying, the likes, and then also at the end of the day, that reaching beyond our network into like-minded people.
Now, obviously, we want people to come to you and hire you to do the work that they may be making mistakes with. But without giving away too many of your trade secrets, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that people are making now in terms of social media and how they're posting and getting their information out to people.
Yeah. Well, that's easy. People will think, "Hey, did you guys prep for this?" And no, we did not. I didn't know you would ask that. But because I'm really big on that idea that I think a lot of businesses think of themselves, their marketing as only, it makes sense. I'm talking about myself. So it's my business. I'm making a print ad or I'm making a banner ad or whatever it is. And I am talking about myself and getting it out there, and I want people to see me. I want attention. Well, at the end of the day, social media is kind of evolved. So now businesses are out there, and then over time, influencers are out there, which are kind of in some ways media entities of one. And they're all competing and putting things out there. And then all of a sudden you've got all these other individuals that have something to say as well. So if you look at the way it's all matured and where it's at, especially on Twitter more than anything else, you'll see that you have to ask yourself, as a business, as a media entity, or as a brand, when you're posting things and you're spending time on social media, are you competing with your constituents for airtime, or are you engaged with them so that when you're posting things, they're actually going to find you more relatable, more human, and engage with you back, pay attention to your stuff, share it? Are you paying attention to their stuff? So there are a lot of businesses that have figured that out and are taking things to the next level, but there's the haves and the have-nots. And the have-nots don't see that yet. And they'll just simply say, "Oh, I don't understand Twitter. It's frustrating. And I just want to post on Facebook and Instagram, and that makes me happy." But that's probably not the best business solution for them. It could be.
And the other thing, excuse me for interrupting, but a lot of people think that Twitter, if they don't use Twitter, and I use Twitter, as you know, but a lot of people feel that Twitter is mostly political. And it's not. It's not. Twitter is what you make it.
It is. And that goes to that algorithm. It knows what you like. And so it's going to show you primarily things that you've engaged with, people you follow. But it also, I think it's a little spooky. And I think it also knows when you hover over things, whether you like it or not, like you're interested. Just the same way as we're all wondering if when we're talking now, if my phone is not listening to it, so all of a sudden I'm going to see a lot more stuff from you on my Facebook feed, because Facebook's listening and going, "Oh yeah, they're friends. They're chatting with each other." And, I don't really believe in conspiracy things very much, but there have been many times when that exact thing has happened.
Oh, I know. I mean, it's interesting that I have a friend, and she was having a conversation with someone in her home about a certain product, and it started popping up in her feed all the time.
Me too.
Me
too. Before I ever knew what a Peloton was, we were all at brunch one day and talking about Peloton. I was like, "Oh, it's interesting." Next thing you know, Peloton ads start showing up on my Facebook feed.
Now, I have this perception of you, Matt, and perhaps I'm right or wrong, but that you're constantly traveling, that you're doing a lot of Pride events, that you're doing a lot of LGBTQ communities events, and those types of things. Do you enjoy traveling? Are you on the lot?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed traveling, but I also like, especially with when I do it for business, I just enjoy being out with people, and I think I learn a lot more when I'm engaged with people in the real world, and we're sharing ideas and learning and so forth. So a lot of it has just been kind of staying connected out there, and then when I'm not traveling for business, I'm back and in the office and doing my work. And so I always try to mix. Back in the day before COVID, I would always mix it up that way. And of course, I did a lot of personal travel as well. My husband loves traveling, and so we'll bounce around a lot, but I'll always try to weave in a little bit of work along the way, which sometimes drives him crazy, but I'll try to meet people that are even in Thailand and places that we're traveling to on vacation. And so the whole mix has worked, and I'm curious to see what it's going to all look like as things start to open back up again, and what my travel life will look like.
Are you ever able to take a real vacation where you completely leave your work aside and say, "I'm not working for the next week or so"?
I think I'm one of those people. So everyone may judge me harshly for this, but I'm one of those people that I just don't know how to turn it off. And so, however, I would just say that, but I am balanced. Like, I actually literally try to definitely stop work at 5, and I try to balance my life and so forth. But at the same time, I am sort of always on. So, and I've been doing that for so long that it's just a natural, innate part of me now. So,
I'm going to Provincetown for a week next month, and I have decided. Someone even said I can set up some interviews with you while you're in Provincetown. And I said, no, I'm going to take a real vacation, and I truly am. I don't know how far I will succeed with this, but because I'm the same way, it's very, very difficult for me to shut it off. And
Yeah.
but I've just been going nonstop, and I think that perhaps COVID and living through the past year will make this an easier thing for me to do, because I've been here in this studio space that I've created, doing this almost every single day. So I'm looking forward to getting away for a week. But I want to ask you, everything, the theaters shut down last year on March 12th here in New York. And of course, that affected theaters and businesses all over the country. What did your calendar look like on March 11th of last year?
Yeah, well, I was in New York. So I was in New York, and we had an event on the 13th, and it still went forward. But that was that dicey where things were all kind of evolving that week. And so after that weekend, everything was shut down, and we didn't go back. We weren't back in New York for months after that. So everything just sort of, for all of us, that was the interesting thing, is it was such a worldwide phenomenon that everything just sort of stopped.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a full calendar at that time when everything shut down?
Oh yeah, no, and we had tourism's always been a strong part of our business side, and so almost everything tourism related just stopped as well. And so fortunately, last year we have other clients in the health industry and so forth, so there are always other projects to work on, but at the same time, most of that destination work stopped, and it's starting to pick back up again. So that's why we're looking at, between that point and where we're at moving forward in 2021, where it's all going to go.
Well, looking back, what is the biggest impact that COVID has had on you, beyond the obvious things that we've all gone through? How has this past year shaped you in terms of the way that you do your business? Have changes taken place that you feel that you'll carry forward beyond COVID? Yeah,
big time. Because it was the beginning of April. Just thought, we started, you have all this time on your hands, and also I wanted to stay in touch with people. So we created a show, which we've had you on our show as well. We created a show called I Love Gay Today. And I just thought it was just going to be kind of like when I started Gay Wired in 95. I really thought I was just going to fool around a little bit, just kind of tinker around, play, learn a little bit about video editing, and just stay in touch with some folks. And that whole thing has taken off exponentially. But for and just compartmentalizing that part, that will live on well past COVID being fully behind us, because it's a whole different way of staying in contact with people, but also sharing their story with a lot of the other folks that I'm connected to online. Turns out there's a strong interest in that. But in editing my own videos, I learned how to also be able to do presentations and integrate those. And what I'm doing is I'm not just throwing a Zoom video up with PowerPoint. I'm creating something that I'm narrating and talking people through. And I used to be excited if I can get a workshop at a conference and get 50 people to show up to listen to my presentation. And when I've converted that into what I'm doing online and kind of have refined that over the last few months, I can do a presentation to get 5,000 people to watch that thing. So it changes the whole dynamic. So all of a sudden, that's why when we're talking about what is it going to look like for me, I'm going to continue to travel this year and next. But what is it going to look like? Because the business reason for me to run around and go to a lot of conferences and try to shake hands, kiss babies, do presentations, the dynamics going to be very different, where all of a sudden now I'm going to probably choose to work with those conferences that are more engaged with me. Almost the same analogy as how we approach online, and more engaged, and so that we can have much more of a win-win. And maybe we'll do live interviews, or we'll do something that allows us to kind of take what we've learned over the last year into the real world with partners like that.
And I don't want to get too deep politically or anything with you, and I'm not going to, but how have the past 4+ years impacted your business?
Yeah, it's funny because I would actually say that the impact was minimal, in that sense that because over those 4 years, business was strong, and so advertisers were advertising and companies were looking to promote themselves. So everything was pretty much there. And if anything, there could have been a little extra, just because there were companies that were spending money because they wanted to prove a point. They wanted to show that we are not, we are not for some of the bigotry and hate that we're seeing out there, and we want to show that. So some of the dollars that were spent may have been towards that, but it didn't feel like it was a lot. And but now that things are starting to open up again, and life is kind of coming roaring back, I'm finding that maybe the impact of those 4 years plus pandemic may be what propels the LGBT world in general much faster forward, because there's so much energy and focus on it right now. This is one of the strongest Pride months I've had in a long time.
Wow. So what is happening for you for Pride Month?
Yeah, not just there's lots of companies that are just jumping on now to want to promote themselves, and it was a lot of last minute stuff. I think it was last minute because they couldn't really plan for what they wanted to do, because nobody knew our event's going to be going on. As Pride Festival, various Pride festivals are going to happen. So I think everybody was kind of taking a wait and see attitude up until May, where all of a sudden they're like, okay, we want to do something. And so all of a sudden, like, a lot of stuff started to open up, and it's come on really quickly, but it really feels like they're making plans for post June as well. So we're feeling positive that things might actually play out all the way through the end of the year.
I am really amazed at how I'm seeing other businesses embrace the LGBTQ community right now.
Yeah.
Logo, that's always been in our corner.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm getting choked up over this. But Google and other businesses. And I read today that Burger King.
I know.
Did you hear this?
They're trolling Chick-fil-A.
Trolling Chick-fil-A by creating their own chicken sandwich, and that they are giving money to the LGBTQ community from those who purchase those sandwiches, which I think is an amazing thing. What are some of the things that you've seen in media that have really surprised you? And also in line with that question, there's been a lot of gentrification. It's a very different world than it was when I first, for lack of a better term, came out, that we're living in. And is there still a very strong need for a business like Pink Media in terms of targeting that demographic?
Yeah, and answering that first, I mean, I've often thought about that over all these years, but there is a component that will always be there for us, and it's the social component. That means that at the end of the day, being gay, lesbian, bisexual, that does define at the very least who you want to date and who you want to marry, and by default, it also kind of then predicates your circle of friends and the people that you're around and so forth. Now, things have changed where young people, when we were all young, we wanted to, if you wanted to meet gay people, you go to a bar, you were surrounded by the gay people that was in a village perhaps. And so that whole thing is devolved, where there's no longer very many gay villages. There's very few gay bars. Everybody uses an app. But in addition, a lot of young people will hang out with their friends and not necessarily feel compelled to separate off and go to a separate gay bar. So when you look at all those demographic changes that have come along, things have really, like, in many ways, fast forward, just moved very quickly in terms of stronger acceptance and stronger just folks feeling like they belong to something, to the larger community. So it's kind of that trend that we look at has been the most positive for everything we're looking at right now.
Now, I want to ask you, what is the biggest impact that you have had on this company, and what is the biggest impact that the company has had on you?
Yeah, with Pink Media.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say that it's allowed me the freedom. I especially because having been able to move on and do what I wanted, it allowed me the freedom to be able to try new ideas, try new things, kind of take some of the ideas that I had and then test them out and try them, see what works, what doesn't. And that goes to what you were saying, how things are changing constantly. So what may have worked for us in 2007, then 2008 and 2009, a lot of the things we were trying to do with content and RSS feeds and all this different stuff, that's technology that you could use to kind of try to step up into a next level. But a lot of that were just transitionary, and they evolved and changed, and some of them went away. But over time, it allowed me the freedom to be able to do all that and then be able to get to where we're at today, because some of that stuff did actually play out to a kind of more of a final end game of where it's at right now.
Well, it's funny. I have a lot of marketing books, and I will pull a book off the shelf every once in a while, and I'll look at it, and it's so outdated.
Yeah.
None that's there. How are you able to keep current in an ever-changing world.
You've got to have different sources. You've got to have good sources of info and know where to look without, but we don't have time to like read a 30-minute essay about something and find out that wasn't helpful. And that's not what I'm looking for. So a lot of these blog posts, I mean, we just basically, whether it's using something like Flipboard where, they have a technology section there, and I'll spend time with that as one example. But in general, I just try to stay on top of a few different sources of things of what's happening, both technology and also in our community. But those sort of sources, that really is what allows us to try to stay on top of and learn and evolve. But nothing, I believe, so little that you pick up from a book that's 10 years old or so in the world of marketing is relevant anymore. Mm-hmm. It has really adapted and changed that quickly. And it's an exciting place. And I think it's a better place than it was with, I love watching Mad Men, and that shows you the data point from the 1960s of what things looked like then and to where it's at now and how it's evolved. But I think it's some of the best it's ever been because it's more human today than it was back then.
And what's a typical day like for you? Or is there any such thing as a typical day for you?
There is. I that's part of the balance of life. When I get up and I have my coffee and I'm waking myself up and enjoying, I do read a lot of different news things online, and I just have different things that I start reading that require more brain cells. So as the coffee kicks in, the quality of the news increases, and then I bounce over and then go into Facebook and LinkedIn. And by the time I'm done and with kind of this routine, then I'm able to jump in and start tackling all the work. And I'm a morning person, so I try to tackle most of the work before lunchtime and get that out.
And being on top of things that are constantly changing, what are some of the things that you're hearing about that you're very excited about as far as media and how we all look ahead? And what are some of the things that you really are going, really? Is this really happening?
Well, mostly it's what I talked about before. That's the core of it, because it's going to be happening for the next few years, which is just being able to have a presence on social media where you're allowed the opportunity to collaborate and engage with others. And that's going to flesh itself out and continue to grow. And that's where I was saying the two that people don't always pay as much attention to, Twitter and LinkedIn, are probably the highest growth areas that we find compared to Facebook and Instagram. But I would say that if I was to pay attention and if I was a betting man, I think TikTok is probably, it doesn't always mean TikTok specifically is the answer.
And do you utilize TikTok, by the way?
Just barely, because I know, I've gotten to that point where, when you know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And I'm also, TikTok makes me aware that I'm old. And it also, and TikTok,
older, not old. Older.
I know, but actually I'm not shy about that one, because when you go on it, I realize that I've hit a limit. If I'm watching TikTok because I actually believe there's a future there with whatever they've opened up and unleashed. They've unleashed a world of creativity amongst young people, mostly young people, that is highly engaging and highly, it really shows where things are going to continue to evolve. But you have to be really into creating content like that. And that's my, I toy around with just posting some stuff that fits the format, but it's not engaging. It's not, I don't know how to be fun, TikTok funny or TikTok fun, but a lot of other people do. So in a nutshell, if I was to actually evolve more and grow into TikTok, I would have to hire somebody that really was able to kind of do that for us, because it just would not be authentic or genuine if it came from me or anybody on our team right now.
And also in this ever-evolving world that we live in, have you had any issues, or have you had to deal with any censorship issues or posting something that has gotten you in trouble? Yesterday, a friend of mine was actually kicked off Facebook 2 days ago, where he went to Facebook jail because he posted "Go and kill the people tonight" to a fellow performer. And those of us who are in the theater know that that's always been a theater expression. Go out there and slay them in the aisles, kill them, knock them dead. These are the expressions that we use. But he posted it on Facebook and got kicked off for 3 days. Yeah.
I would, when you go to the doctor and you say it hurts when I do this, and the doctor says, well, then don't do that.
Then don't do that.
So the reality is that that's the world we're in.
Mhm.
And it's unfortunate that so much has happened that has made it so that language like that is being examined so closely.
Mhm.
But in general, we steer clear. We don't get ourselves too much into any Twitter jail or Facebook jail from any posts. But the tricky part is because there's so much went on with political ads and everything over those 4 years, or really 5 years now, that it's really hard to run ads on Facebook and Twitter. And a lot of times there's a gray area where sometimes they're just flagging things because there is some sort of gay terminology, like, or somebody might just go in. Somebody may be reviewing it that has their own feelings about LGBT life and may actually reject it, and it has to go through a secondary before they say, oh, there was nothing wrong with it to begin with. And you really start questioning, like, the process and what's going on there, what flags they're looking for that do that. Because we do actually have a tricky time just getting the most mundane, simple ads approved sometimes. And it's because it's almost always an LGBT issue. And we don't make a big fuss about it. We just simply try to work with them. We actually have people we can work with that try to help us navigate that, but it's a real pain sometimes.
And do you use Facebook ads and Twitter ads?
We do, mostly Facebook ads, because like I said, Facebook's not great for us as an organic when you post, except for a personal profile page, but they're great when you pay them, because when you pay them, you're able to really drill down and target very, very specific people. Like when you and I were working together, we would target an LGBT audience that has shown an interest in theater similar to yours, or performances such as yours, and live within the New York area. So that's very hard to do on any place else other than Facebook.
And one other platform that we really haven't talked about tonight is YouTube. Do you use that a lot? And what works for you as far as YouTube is concerned, and what doesn't work for you?
Well, I think YouTube's great. And with the I Love Gay Today series, YouTube is the hub. It's the home that we post those on. We will post the videos on Facebook as well, but Facebook doesn't act as a hub as well as YouTube does. So YouTube as just a service is phenomenal in everything that it does. And it also, once you post something on YouTube, since Google owns it, your SEO from that post works well, which means that if somebody's in Google search, there's a good chance that you're going to show up pretty high just because you posted it on YouTube. So all of that are really strong reasons why we do what we do. But at the same time, it's great, but we're not YouTube stars. So when everything is there, we're happy if we can get like 50, 100. Sometimes we'll get like 500 or 1,000 views on 1 or 2 videos, but in general we don't, because that's not so as a platform, we have not cracked the nut and made it so that we're some sort of YouTube small mini phenomenons that can get noticed, but others have. There are some LGBT YouTubers that get hundreds of thousands of video views for every video they post. So for some folks, it works amazingly well.
And are you a numbers watcher?
A what watcher? Oh, a numbers watcher.
Sure.
No.
You don't pay attention to those numbers at all?
No, I look casually. I kind of glance at all the numbers and look to see, like, oh yeah, what's going on there. In general, I would say that I look at everything, I don't know, holistically. Where when I post something, I'm more interested to see, what is it doing on Twitter, LinkedIn. If I have something that does really well on Instagram, it's because we've tagged somebody that we've interviewed that is strong on Instagram and has shared it with their following. So then we'll get like a little breakout post. So I'll notice those, but we're not, our business model doesn't require that. And we're not living for likes, and we don't take things down and repost to try to get more likes. So we're not in that business at all. And fortunately, if you look at it from a broader point of view, like in SEO on YouTube or just this general exposure, then it can do extremely well. But if you're focused if you're in the bushes and in the weeds, and you're focused on the details of every one of those videos and how many people have seen it all the way through, and so forth, then that could take a lot of your airtime focused on that detail. And
it will knock the air out of you as well.
Yeah, I'm personally not wired that way, and thank goodness, because otherwise it might work to my detriment.
Now, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, they want to hire you, and that's the hope tonight. What's the best way that you prefer that people reach out to you?
Yeah, no, they could find me. The website is always pinkmedia.lgbt, but if they actually reach out on any social media, Twitter, Facebook, and so forth, they could just reach me at Matt, M-A-T-T, and then S-K-A-L. That's my handle on, it's 8 characters, and it's my handle on all social media. So real easy to find.
And I will include that in the body of information on this particular interview, so that people can find you. Where would you like to find yourself in 5 years from now?
Yeah, well, I do. There will be a point where I will probably go to P-Town and just relax and take all that downtime. But I just have to get to that point where, like right now, it's like I was saying, it's as exciting now as it was in the 90s when you're starting something in a whole new environment. And it's just, I love being a part of that. So right now I love very much what I'm doing and what I'm a part of. And I do want to see it through, but there's going to come a certain point where it would make more sense that it'll be part of something larger. And so somebody, the right company would look and say, yeah, this fits into where we see ourselves going. I could turn over the keys and then be able to move on in life. And then at that point, probably not continue to start something new again. It just focus more on my husband and my travel and all those nice little things you get to do when you're in your 60s.
Do you think you can miss it?
Part of it, but I'm also, there were things I've done in my life that I don't do anymore. Just going out socializing in a way that I used to have more fun than I do now. And I look back on those days fondly. But
I think you and I are in the same age bracket, so yeah. I absolutely concur with you.
I look back on those days and I think, thank goodness I had such a great time, and I'm fully like I smile at myself when I'm watching TV about some of the thoughts that cross my mind, but at the same time I don't miss it. I love where I'm at today, so hopefully I'll be the same way 10 years from now.
Now I'm going to play a little lightning round game with you. These are questions that have been sent to me, just not specifically for you, but just in general, life questions.
Yeah.
So what problem do you think is most common among friends? The question is your age, but I'm going to say our age.
The biggest problem, feeling understood and understanding others, especially from other age demographics that are younger.
Mm-hmm. Great answer. What is the most valuable quality for you in a friend?
I'm trying to pick the exact right word, but it would just be, it's that trust and loyalty, and that, knowing someone is real.
Mm-hmm. What is the strongest quality in your best friend?
Being real.
Okay. What is the most painful thing that you've ever had to tell a friend?
The honest truth about how other people perceived them, which wasn't as good as I would have wanted to, but for some reason felt compelled to tell that person. Would I ever do that again? Maybe not.
And why were people perceiving that person a certain way? And did they have any idea at all that they were being perceived the way that you described it to them?
Yeah, that was, and I was young. I was in my 20s, but that was one of the more painful times. Somebody was kind of going on and on about how great he felt himself and all this and that, and
Mm-hmm.
and it turned out that most of his colleagues and folks that he worked with thought he was kind of a jerk. And after a few cocktails, somehow I felt compelled to make sure that he knew that.
After a few cocktails, we've all been there. Okay,
it wasn't a drunk thing, but it was definitely something that I realized in my youth. I realized, yeah, I won't be doing that again.
And what is the biggest favor that a friend has ever done for you?
I have a blank. I may have to let that one go.
Oh, you'll come back with that one.
Yeah.
Well, this may be what you've just answered. What is the coolest thing that you've ever done to a friend?
Oh, the coolest thing is either, but I'm that kind of guy that it's an ongoing day-to-day thing. No, and I'll tell you why I get stumped on these things. It comes up all the time. I don't have favorites of things. And so when people ask me, like, what's your favorite movie or favorite, like, I don't have a lot of favorites. There's a lot of things that I like in different ways. And so my brain actually doesn't remember and keep organized stuff like that, and including especially like events. Like if I had done something for someone or someone did something for me, I remember the overall feeling, and I know that that person was a good person, and or I felt good about what I did. But I actually I struggle with remembering the details. I've always been that way.
That's great. I like that though. And what is the one thing a friend has that you would most like to have for yourself?
Oh, just continuing in the direction that I'm in now. With I've got love in my life, and I got balance, and I want to just be able to keep that undisturbed for the next 20 years.
And I love this last question. What is the worst character trait in a friend that you can actually overlook?
Oh, craziness.
Well, Matt, that's why I love you.
but what I can't overlook is if someone is mean to someone else, I can't overlook that.
No.
But so it doesn't bother others. But that one's a note that is a deal breaker. But crazy people, somehow I can tolerate them, while others, it drives them nuts.
Well, Matt, I thank you so much for being here tonight. I hope that this was as much fun for you as it is for me. It feels like I'm turning the tables since you've had me on your show, and I'm so glad that you said yes. Happy Pride to you. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. If it's your first time here and you enjoyed this show, please subscribe to Richard Skipper Celebrates on YouTube. And please leave a comment on this show. Hit the like button and share it with a friend. Tell other people. And tell people, of course, about Pink Media. It's easy to remember, Pink Media. And they're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. So it's easy to find. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. I want you to go to your Facebook friends list, and I want you to reach out to the 8th person on your list. And I want you to reach out and tell that person what they mean in your life. Not a phone call, not an email message, not a text message, but a phone call. As a dear friend says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. But if you're going to be out in a boat, make sure that you bring a skipper along. So, Matt, I'm actually going to leave the screen, and I'm going to give you the platform to yourself. You've got anything that you want to talk about, that you want to expound upon, that we've already talked about tonight, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message that you want to put out to everyone watching at this point. Again, happy Pride, and wear those pink flamingos with lots of pride as you go on. I love you, Matt. You're really one of the best.
Thank you. Oh, well, that was wonderful. So for anybody who's watching, thanks for being here. And if you have any questions about things that I talked about, feel free to message me. Find me at pinkmedia.lgbt anytime. Thanks.